Over 80 years ago, The Wizard of Oz hit theaters. Well, the version we all know starring Judy Garland as Dorothy Gale. Based loosely on L. Frank Baum's hit book illustrated by W. W. Denslow, this is the story we know and love. But there was stage plays and movies based on The Wizard of Oz almost the same day it was published in 1900. And for some reason, most of them seem to be cursed in one way or another.
To modernize, they're a bit unsettling, creepy looking even, and the stories they presented are dark and strange and maybe not so wonderful.
Let's dig into this.
The first major public performance of The Wizard of Oz was directed by Julian Mitchell and produced by Fred R. Hamlin. It opened in Chicago on June 16, 1902, at the Grand Opera House. Baum had written an operetta based on the original book and was pleased with his story. Mitchell and Hamlin weren't. They wanted something more adult, more vaudeville, more spectacular.
Baum wrote what they wanted, and W. W. Denslow, the illustrator from the Oz books, was set to do special effects and costume design. But by the time the show opened, less than half of Baum's songs were used, and another designer was brought in to complete Denslow's work.
The play was geared towards the adult audience of the time. Baum and Denslow did their best to keep the wonder and delight of the original story intact among political jokes and chorus girls. David C. Montgomery as the Tin Man and Fred Stone as the Scarecrow became instant stars. And the story? Well, it was extremely complicated.
Here's a short version of a couple of the major plot points as we understand it.
There was no Toto and no Wicked Witch of the West, but there was a cow named Imogene and a love interest for Dorothy. Yikes. Dorothy and cow Imogene are blown to Oz from their Kansas farm, landing on and killing a Wicked Witch. The Munchkins are there, and the Good Witch of the North, not Glinda but named Lucasta here, gives Dorothy a ruby ring to take to the wizard in the Emerald City for help. Dorothy meets the Tin Man, Scarecrow, and Cowardly Lion along the way.
A streetcar conductor named Pastoria and his main squeeze, Trixie Trifle, a waitress, who were blown into Oz at the same time as Dorothy, are along for the journey with ulterior motives. Pastoria takes over the Emerald City and has Dorothy and her pals arrested as enemies of the state. The group manages to escape, only to be recaptured and sentenced to death. Dorothy finally calls out for the Good Witch of the North, who saves them all just in the nick of time. Wow.
The show was a hit, running for 12 weeks in Chicago before a road tour, and then The Wizard of Oz opened on Broadway at the new Majestic Theater in January of 1903 and ran for 9 months. Described as one of the most successful stage extravaganzas of the early 20th century, the show toured the U.S. until 1909 and had several revivals after that. But Baum wasn't happy with the story, and he wanted to try a new show.
In 1908, Baum created the Fairy Log and radio plays as a major stage presentation. What's with the title? Well, travel logs were hugely popular at the time, with films or lectures describing someone's exotic adventures. Baum added the fairy from fairy tale, and apparently the word radio was used at around that time describing anything high tech. Some say it was like using the word cyber a couple of decades ago. So Baum packaged this version of his story with a quite descriptive and exciting title.
Unfortunately, the film disintegrated and no longer exists, but a few photos and the script are still intact. Live actors, hand-tinted slides, and film were all used for the presentation. Based on several Oz books, it starred Baum himself as the Wizard of Oz man, who presented and interacted with around 30 different characters. Descriptions of the production say he and other characters would seem somehow to step into and out of the film, which must have been truly incredible at the time.
It opened in Grand Rapids, Michigan on September 24th, 1908, before it moved on to Chicago and then New York. It was a hit and shows sold out everywhere. The critics loved it too. Unfortunately, it was so expensive to produce that despite its popularity, it never brought in enough ticket sales to cover the costs, reportedly closing earlier than expected on December 16th of 1908.
The show lost so much money that Baum was forced to declare bankruptcy and even lost some of the rights to his books, including The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Others quickly saw an opportunity to cash in.
In 1910, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was made, without Baum, by the Selig Polyscope Company. Based only partly on the 1902 play, it still contained political humor and a huge cast, but seems to be aimed more towards children. It would be the first appearance of the Wicked Witch of the West and include Glenda the Good Witch and Toto. Dorothy was played by Bebe Daniels, who was under the age of 10 at the time.
This film is very different from the 1939 version, with Dorothy, Imogene the cow, Hank the mule, Toto, and the farm scarecrow all being transported to Oz. Through a series of events, the Scarecrow is declared King of Oz, setting up three sequels to this film, all released in 1910 as well.
These sequels have been lost and only are known from press releases printed in the moving picture world. An independent publication which seems to have been published twice a year for folks in the film industry.
Dorothy and the Scarecrow in Oz was the first release, with The Land of Oz coming out next. A film called John Doe and the Cherub was released last and was probably based on Baum's book of the same name and not an Oz story per se. The descriptions in Moving Picture World call the stories delightful and the characters dear to the hearts of children. And sadly, that is all we know of these three films.
In 1914, Baum launched the Oz Film Manufacturing Company with great fanfare. The Patchwork Girl of Oz was released in September of 1914 and was a complete failure. Since no one made money showing this film, the distribution company refused for a while to release the next two films.
His Majesty the Scarecrow of Oz was released late in September, and critics praised the film, but it was another financial dud. The Magic Cloak of Oz was apparently not even released that September. The failures were a major reason the Oz Film Manufacturing Company failed in 1915. The failures of his films and studio took a toll on Baum, and his health began to suffer around this time.
After Baum passed away in 1919, his son wrote a full-length script with then-famous comedy actor Larry Seaman for a new Wizard of Oz film. Seaman would also direct and star as the Scarecrow, with his fiancée Dorothy Dwan in the role of Dorothy. Oliver Hardy, later famous as half of Laurel and Hardy, appeared as the Tin Man, who was actually a villain in this version. A little over an hour and a half long, it is an incredible film for this time.
Once again, we're back to a more adult story, with Dorothy turning 18 in the movie. With an airplane and a kidnapping at gunpoint, the Tin Man shooting at the Scarecrow with a cannon, a love triangle, the revelation that Dorothy is actually a princess and the rightful ruler of Oz, and a wedding to a prince. This isn't the Oz we know.
The film received a few good reviews, mostly mentioning Larry Seaman's slapstick comedy, and reviewers predicted it would do well in theaters. It didn't. Production company Chadwick Pictures went bankrupt thanks in great part to the film, and according to his obituary, the screen disaster caused Larry Seaman to file for bankruptcy have a nervous breakdown, and die of pneumonia in 1928. It was said at the time that the stress caused by The Wizard of Oz killed him at just 39 years old.
If you are a fan of film history, a Wizard of Oz lover, or just interested in seeing these old films, we'll put links in the description and on our website. But a gentle reminder and fair warning, these films are products of their time, not ours. The humor displayed may be uncomfortable, and the racism shown in places is certainly offensive.
Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments.
Hey, here's another Dragonden video you might like.
And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button.
And you can hit the notification bell if you'd like to know when our videos come out.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.